STEM counselor here at Cal State San Bernardino. Give me 1 second here. Okay, so welcome. I'm glad you guys are here. We have 3 great panelists here, and unfortunately one of our panelists that was originally supposed to be here was not able to come, but thankfully we have another faculty member who has a very interesting story that is here to join us. So to just quickly introduce our panelists, we have Troy Ilwin. He graduated at Cal State San Bernardino with his Bachelor's of Science in Biochemistry. We have Dr. Pham, who is an associate professor here at Cal State San Bernardino as well. And then we also have Dr. Maynard, who is also a professor here at Cal State San Bernardino. So to just quickly open up our career panel and to just kind of have you all talk about your experiences, the first question that we have is if you can please describe the experiences that led you to this point in your academic and professional career. We can start off with Troy.
Hey, I am Troy. I graduated in 2019, as Myra already said. I currently work in the industry. I work in upstream and downstream manufacturing. I work for a CDMO, a contract development manufacturing organization. So we do a lot of bioengineering and biotechnology related things. But I'm specifically in the department that helps develop and cultivate cell lines for various pharmaceutical purposes. I'm basically here to, as someone in the industry, preach the merit of temp agencies. That was something that I really wish I got that piece of advice when I graduated from college. It's a really great opportunity to get your foot in the door, especially when you don't have any experience on your resume. Even if you have lab experience in college, a lot of post-grad stuff is going to be you applying to interviews, and without a voucher or like a letter of recommendation, it can be kind of hard to get your foot in the door. If you go through temp agencies, you have somebody whose entire job is to get you a job, and especially for your first like 1 or 2 job postings to get out of college. At least that's what I did. It's a really great opportunity to find something that you like doing. You have a little bit more negotiating power than you would if you just were to just go and drop off your resume. And then on top of that, you get to see a lot more of the industry and to kind of figure out what you specialize in, because chemistry is a really broad field, and a chemistry degree can take you a lot of places, but you just kind of have to figure out where you want to go and what steps you need to get there. For me personally, I started a lot of my work with PCR related fields and in manufacturing, process development, and research development. It's been a really interesting experience being in the industry and being able to, I guess, learn from the industry what I didn't learn in college, and learn a lot of the applications of the things that you learn while you're in college. But yeah, the main point I would like to drill home is look for temp agencies in your local area or wherever it is that you are looking to start your career, and that will be a really great way to start taking a walk on your path.
Thank you, Troy. Dr. Pham, would you like to go next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Joyce Pham. I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Chemistry and Biochemistry here. I'm from Northern California, and I started doing undergraduate research in my first year as an undergraduate student at UC Davis. And I really enjoy asking questions. And so that kind of led me to do graduate work on some research that won the Nobel Prize in 2011 on quasicrystals. And so I went to Iowa State University, where I learned how to live in the cold and learn a lot about the Midwest and just about chemistry in general. And then I was very curious about how do people conduct research abroad. So I went to the Max Planck Institute in Dresden, Germany. And then now I'm back in California, in Southern California, and I started my professorship here in 2020 in the midst of the pandemic. So I would say if you want my advice, since I'm following off Troy, is that everything you learn as a chemistry major in your chemistry classes was at one point a research project. Research is a search for knowledge. So somewhere, someone along the line had to search for the knowledge that you and I call research. or that you and I call facts now that we learn in our class. And so that really kind of, that interest in research, or really interest in asking questions, is what led me to my position here now. Thank you, Mara. And I guess I'll pass it on to Professor Maynard.
Thank you, Joyce. Well, I have the pleasure of having been associated with Cal State San Bernardino for over 50 years now. It was in September of 1972 that I started here as a first-time freshman. Actually started as a music major, changed to math, and then I took chemistry, and I just really fell in love with it. It has the mathematical application that I like, but it also was very much hands-on. I got involved in chemistry early. I started research on a Bacillus stereothermophilus with a faculty here. I really enjoyed the challenges of it. I also worked in the stockroom, prepping labs, and as a chemistry tutor. I've always loved being a teacher, and after graduation, I did go work for industry for about 18 months. Worked for a company called Lee's Pharmaceuticals, and they were famous for making Lee's nails. They have since gone out of business, but I wanted to get back into teaching. So I came back and got a teaching credential here, and then taught junior high science and math for 3 years. Honestly, I don't know what I was thinking, but it was a real experience. But I did want to go back to school, and so I did a master's and a PhD. And there was an opportunity for me to work for several large pharmaceutical groups. My research for my PhD was involved in vitamin D. So this is in the early to mid 80s. And that was when they were really figuring out kind of how vitamin D works. It has some different properties. And then I decided, no, I wanted to teach. So I took a teaching postdoc at Occidental College, and then started back here as a full professor in 1992, or as a professor in 1992. And I've been here since then. My research here has involved a variety of different topics. When I came here, I had a kind of an offshoot of my vitamin D work. Well, that was quickly picked up by a pharmaceutical company. And about my 4th year, I read a review paper where they had basically proposed and done everything I was going to do for the next 5 years, actually the rest of my career. That's okay. It's good to finish projects and go on to the next thing. And I truly enjoy the variety of activities I have, both as a chemist and as a faculty member. I then walked around, went over to UCR and worked with an entomologist for 5 years on some compounds that they had isolated from avocados, and wanted to do a field study. They were called avocadofurans, and these compounds, if they were able to isolate milligrams of it and come up with a chemical structure, but they needed about 5 grams. And to get 5 grams of this compound would really involve buying all the avocados from California for a year. They couldn't do it. So I went into the lab and came up with a synthesis of it, and we produced, I don't know, probably 10 grams for about $20,000. So it was a good deal, and our students did research on it. A patent was made on it, but unfortunately, there are better products out there. That actually completed. One day I was at a conference, and we have an anthropologist who has since retired called Franny Burdan, and I just went and said, I really enjoyed your talk on the Aztecs. And she said, I need a chemist. I'm making an Aztec war shield, and I don't know how they glued the feathers. So this was about a 10-year collaboration. It involved professors across the border. I kind of became an expert on Aztec glue. So I got to go to Mexico City, work with some very famous artifacts down there, and we came up with a glue that was about 70% the strength of Gorilla Glue. It involved copal beeswax. Beeswax was important because we were given a conference with the British Museum, and on their abstracts, they said they thought it had beeswax, and we knew it had beeswax. So we kind of beat the British Museum in the analysis of their glue. Yeah. So since then, I've also taken over a lot of administrative positions. So what you're learning as an undergraduate is basic science and how to do things and how to write and how to do math. And those abilities are transferable, like Troy said, to many, many fields. So I was department chair of chemistry for 12 years. And during that time, we designed and built the chemical sciences building. I've been dean of both, interim dean of both the natural science here in the Palm Desert campus. I've been department chair of several other departments as well. Right now, I am getting close to retirement, you guys. So right now I am teaching chemistry 2100. I love the basic chemistry and I really enjoy being back with students. And then the rest of my position is working with our PATH grant, which is part of the kind of advising grants for STEM majors. Okay, that's a short summary.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Maynard. Thank you, Dr. Pham. Thank you, Troy. So now we're just going to open up to questions. So if there are any questions, students, please feel free to ask. If you need to talk to someone directly, go for it. Or if it's just a general question, feel free to put it in the chat, say it out loud.
I actually do have a question that I've been asking a lot of our panelists, and I do want to open it up to anyone who would like to answer. So my question would be, what skills do you believe are not emphasized enough when you're a college student?
I can chime in on that. I think it's important to reframe what failing means. I feel like in looking at the undergraduate curriculum and just in my advising of students and even looking back upon myself, I remember when I got even an exam or a quiz or even a report that I got back that just made me feel like, oh, that's a failing grade. And you can look at it as a D. Actually, I got a D in one of my undergraduate class, but I remember being very devastated. And I don't think that we need to look at failure in such a black and white, oh, you either fail or you pass. And it shouldn't be equate to your worth so much. I think it's important as an undergraduate student and the undergraduate curriculum to teach students how to fail gracefully and to see it as a way of learning and how to get back up and learn from a different perspective. Because if anything, I think it's undergraduate curriculum is a great time to learn how to try different things and realize, okay, maybe that's not what my strengths are, and that's okay. So that's one aspect I would say is not emphasized enough in at least the US system here that I've seen. Thanks for asking that, Darlene.
Yeah, my comment was, I kind of agree with Dr. Pham. At some point, even so one thing I think we could do better with undergraduate is think about future plans. We are so stuck on graduation and passing that class. I know myself, and I can see my students are not thinking about the next step after. So, do you want to go to graduate school? Are you getting ready to do a job? What type of position do you want to have? Using a job interview, they will ask you, so, what did you fail at, or some type of question like that. And in my interviews, it's like, I can't think of anything I failed at. There are things I would have liked to do, would have done better or differently, but they are learning experiences. And so when you do poorly, whether it's somebody else's expectations or your own, what's important is you look at it, and one is that important, or two, if it is, do you make the appropriate adjustments, and what do you learn from it?
May I say something? I just wanted to interject on what Dr. Pham said.
Yes, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, from the student's perspective, I feel like it's kind of embarrassing to fail. So I think that if somebody is failing and the teacher or the professor would reach out to the failing student and talk to them privately about overcoming failure and seeing it as something that they can improve on instead of something that devastates them, I think that would go a long way. because I do know that there are a lot of introverts out there who will never, ever mention their failure to you. So yeah, I think that if you reach out, it would make a big difference.
And thanks for chiming in, Michael. And I think that is wonderful that you just mentioned that. You just said that this is what I as a student would need. And I think that's part of the undergraduate journey, is figuring out what is it that you need to make yourself successful. And if you realize that this is what you need, and if you're not getting it, how are you going to get it from somewhere else? If you're not getting it from one person, get it from somewhere else. And so your faculty may not know this, but you know that what you need, and so you want to advocate for yourself. And so yes, some people, like I'm pretty introverted depending on the days, and so I have to find that support network for myself as well. And yeah, I try to reach out too, and so this is good hearing from. Are you a student, Michael? Yeah.
Yes, I am.
Okay, thanks for sharing that.
I just want to jump in and say, I think something that's sort of like passively taught in school, but something that I really like, I think is worth focusing on, is developing soft skills and developing relationships with faculty members and with also your fellow students, because it really shapes you up for the professional world. A lot of those skills are going to be you're going to have a conversation with a hiring manager. You're going to have to have a conversation with, you know, a doctor who's running your graduate lab or something like that. You want to be able to make sure that you're able to present yourself in a way that is representative of who you are and what you are capable of bringing to the team. But also to tag on the interjection that was brought up earlier, I think like failure is something that in education is very, very especially as a student, is like really all encompassing, and it feels kind of like you're drowning in it. But I feel like it's something that, you know, needs to be talked about a lot, because I've failed at a lot of stuff in my life, and I feel like pretty much everyone has. And especially with education, you kind of prepare yourself for the real world, where you also will do a good amount of failing. And it's just a part of the learning process. You know, if you learn how to do something in school, you can go to a company after you graduate and they'll teach you how to do it a completely different way. And then you could go to another company after that and they're going to teach you how to do it a completely different way as well. And even if you feel like you're comfortable and you're confident in something, you know, you may go to another company and they teach you how to do it differently, and it's a struggle. But it's just a part of life. And I guess like one of the soft skills that I would stress is really great to learn on is, you know, self-soothing and developing like coping mechanisms between like your work life and your personal life, and just being able to like leave what you're doing in the lab or leave what you're doing in your place of employment, and come home and be able to like enjoy yourself and live your life.
And bouncing off of Troy's remarks, I think finding a mentor is very important. Find somebody who's been where you're going. I think it's Elon Musk. I don't know if he's in good PR or bad PR now, but he is kind of famous for, you know, what made you successful. And he said something to the effect of, I know when to give somebody a phone call. When I don't know somebody, I know to make a phone call to somebody who knows what they're doing. So yeah, if you can find a mentor, that would be a faculty advisor, science buddy, or an advisor. And then learning how to network. And when you go to a conference, first go to a conference, do research, and how to kind of work a room and go around and talk to different people. A lot of the jobs that are posted, well, a lot of the jobs out there are really never posted. It comes through networking, and I have gotten several jobs just by maybe being in the right place at the right time. But again, it's filling out, finding a mentor, and building your network.
And I kind of want to emphasize that whole networking component. I used to remember wondering like what that is actually. I think over time I've learned that it's reaching out and wondering, what can you do for someone else? What is it that you have to contribute, that you can look at a problem from a different angle, or a situation from your perspective that you can have to offer? That's another way I look at networking now, contributing.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for all of your pieces of advice and all of your answers. You guys can just kind of jump from question to question that I was like, okay, cool. So it's great. Let's see. Oh, we have a question from Luke. what sort of undergraduate, graduate programs are looked for in your specific fields, and that could set us up for future careers in chemistry, internships, lab experience, etc.
I guess I can chime in from an industry perspective. Sharpen up those pipetting skills and aseptic technique. Like when you take a cap off something and you put it down on the table, people will know whether you face it away or not. Learn those habits when you're in undergrad, learn those habits when you are young and cement them, and they will carry you very well into your future.
I really emphasize undergraduate research, and I think Luke, are you the same Luke that's in my research group? Okay, anyway, I won't pre-apply. Oh, okay, hi. Yes, so undergraduate research, I think, allows for me to learn to ask the questions that are pertinent to drive a research forward or to drive a certain project forward. And then I think that's really important, and to look at a problem, but to look at a broader impact of that problem to the discipline. And so the way that research has taught me is how to think, how to ask questions, how to troubleshoot, and really for me, how to appreciate the concepts that I'm learning in my classes. So I see teaching as the dissemination of knowledge in a way that really evokes the students to think for themselves, whereas research is the search for that new knowledge. And so you have that two intertwined together. And I just think that it makes me appreciate nature and natural sciences a lot more. And so the programs that I'm looking for would be those that allow for me to think through research projects. Hopefully that answered your question. Feel free to follow up if you have other questions.
I think the research experience is key to chemistry. We as a chemist, you're most likely are being solved at what, or being hired at whatever level to solve a problem. Even if you're working as quality control. So one of the skills you want to develop as an undergraduate, and I think it can only be done in a research lab, is where you're working independently, but as part of a group and kind of creating new knowledge. And you need to be comfortable going into an area that nobody knows anything about. And I remember the first piece of data sitting with my undergraduate advisor. And he said, we are the only two people who know this information in the universe right now. This is it. Of course, we ran to get it published and verified. But again, if you can have an experience of doing research or doing an internship, you definitely want to take those opportunities. How do you get those? You talk to your advisor, or you talk to one of your faculty members who are who do research and do well in your classes, right? Because most of the faculty who are doing research are looking for strong students. Okay, you don't have to be straight A's, but you have to show a kind of a proficiency in lab and that you enjoy doing lab work.
And the whole idea of doing well in classes is that, okay, what is research? So research is a search for new knowledge. What you're learning in class is the foundation that will give you the skills so that you can build up new knowledge. And so you can apply. So in some of my research projects, we're applying what you've learned in your classes to the project where you're searching for new knowledge. And so understanding that fundamental undergraduate level courses is very important. Dr. Maynard said you don't have to be straight A's, but having some understanding of it will help you in your projects. So yeah.
Thank you all. Anyone else want to chime in on that? Should we move forward? All right, sounds good. So now that we're actually heading towards this research topic, I kind of want to poke at you guys further, and how important do you all feel that mentorship is? So I know that over at some point in your undergrad, or even while you did grad school or your PhD program, or even after just your undergrad, for example, getting straight into the work field, a boss, someone who kind of mentored you in your life, how helpful do you think that is?
Can I say something again?
Oh, go for it.
I just wanted to mention, you know, I think mentorship is critical to our development because it shows us that it can be done, you know, especially if it's like from somebody in the career that you're aspiring to go to. Like for me, that's dentistry. So I have a dentist who's a mentor, and he kind of shows me like the ropes, and he shows me like a little bit of his life and things like that. And it's like really encouraging and inspiring me to hone in on the skills and hone in on you know, the tasks that are in front of me right now, because it's just kind of like, this is kind of like a Sherpa, you know, it's like you're climbing a mountain, somebody's showing you what, you know, where to grab, and that you can achieve the higher altitude. So I definitely think mentorship is important.
I think at one point I thought I wanted to be a pharmacist, chemist, or I love organic chemistry. Organic chemistry, easiest course in the curriculum, right? And so, yeah, pharmacy, they make good money, good hours. And so I was able to do kind of a shadow of a pharmacist for the day and talk to a pharmacist. And after that, I realized I did not like working in a box. I mean, first, be a pharmacist if you want to be. The training is very rigorous. It just wasn't for me. Working in a box, kind of counting pills, hoping little old ladies and men with their, I don't know, Medicare stickers. It was rewarding to talk to you know, patients, but it really wasn't the field that I was that interested in when it got down to the mechanics. I love the chemistry. I love making drugs. You know, like I say, they do have to be legal, okay? I should not say that. I get in trouble for saying that, but I've always enjoyed chemical synthesis, and I enjoy a lot of it. Again, you know, pharmacist, you can probably get a job any place in the United States. Probably in Baker, California, population 9, they have a pharmacist. They probably don't need a synthetic organic chemist. But I really enjoyed chemistry, and again, from the research that I had, that has always stuck with me. I've always enjoyed that part of science and that part of my career. Yeah, so you find the right mentor, right? Find the right mentor, you go, yeah, this is what I'm interested in to you. And they will open up the field to you, and so you can really evaluate it.
I think that it's okay to have multiple mentors. For instance, a mentor might satisfy something that you're looking for professionally. Maybe another mentor might be able to relate to you more personally. And it's about finding or realizing for yourself, what is it that you need to thrive in, and going out to look for that mentor that would be able to assist you. People can only help us as much as we are willing to help ourselves. And so when you asked about mentor, I thought of this one faculty who has since passed away. And actually, I went to his funeral in Norway. But I remember meeting this particular person at this stage in my life where I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was a junior, and I thought I was going to go to grad school, but I wasn't sure yet. And I was just crying. I was sitting near this chemistry building, just on a bench, just figuring out, I'm like, why do I have to decide like already? It's so hard to decide. I thought I was a very young person at that time to have to decide. And I felt like I had to know everything by then. And it was really nice to just serendipitously have met this person. I've seen them around the campus, and they've seen me do research and whatnot in the labs. But we connected on a different level where they kind of guided me and made me feel like, no, I don't need to figure it out, and that it's okay to try many different things. And so kind of be on the lookout for people that satisfy or are reaching out to you in ways that you might not have expected, because mentorship comes in many forms. And so they're able to help support me in more of a personal way, but then my research advisor still helped me in the professional way. And so that was very helpful.
Okay, sounds good. Well, thank you. Anyone else want to chime in on that? No? Cool. All righty, sounds good. We'll just head over to the next question if no one else has any more. what was the job search or application process like for you? I know a lot of students kind of struggle after graduating for their first job. So I think that's the biggest thing that I would ask.
I'll just tell you my first, so I had a resume and I went to job interviews. I actually loved going to job interviews. I did a couple. One is I thought maybe a pharmaceutical salesperson. So I went out for an interview and the question was, so if a doctor, if you have an 11 o'clock appointment with a doctor, but they had an emergency and you had to sit in their waiting room till 4 o'clock in the afternoon, how would you feel about that? And I said, I think I'd have a hard time with that. So needless to say, I didn't get that job. I interviewed at the City of Hope in Duarte. This is 1976, okay? It's like maybe before your grandparents were born, I don't know, but they had just kind of figured out the structure of insulin and they were going to synthetically make it. And I interviewed for that and they wanted me to work on the synthesis here. And I tell you, the job offer was $800 a month. So I was interested in that. And I think they were interested in me because I had done research. And then I went and interviewed at Lee's Pharmaceuticals, and they made fingernails and plastic teeth and plastic bones. And they offered me $900 a month. And $100 a month was quite a bit of money back then. I also interviewed at Kern's Jelly. They needed a quality control chemist. So anyway, I did get the 2 job offers I did get. I actually got 3, but I kind of liked the City of Hope, but I didn't know what that was really involved in. I thought I was going to go back to school, so I took the Lee's Pharmaceuticals job. So here's the rest of the story with City of Hope. Turns out that they were actually doing the bioengineering to insert the insulin DNA sequence into bacteria, and that became the first biotech company in the world. I know the chemist who took that job, and he has a very large house on Newport Bay with a very big boat in the front of it. They did quite well. So again, you never quite know where your research is going. If you know Nicole Barnius, she was also working at that facility at that time. She's a biology faculty. She is at Duarte. She was a couple of rooms down, and she still is heavily involved in CRIM and Wright genetic engineering. So sometimes you just never know what type of jobs are out there. And often with chemists and scientists, they are being hired to do chemistry that we don't know if it's going to be a successful project. So I do have one person who graduated with me with their PhD and went with the upstart firm, and a large company bought them out, and he's a multimillionaire. So he did really well. Not as good as me, because I turned out to have the best job in the world, and that is university professor. But you're out there looking, and where are the successful jobs? So Troy, I'm not exactly sure what you're doing, but you may invent something very famous or become an expert in the field, and then you're going to be highly sought after and be very financially successful. And I hope successful in all your other fields as well, because you have to be successful in everything, right? You have to be happy with life. So
Thank you, sir.
that was my job interview. That was my first job interview. As you continue, you build your resume and you figure out what you need to do to move to the next area that you want. And I'll be quiet now.
All right. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I know I already said it before, but I'm just going to go with temp agencies. I can't tell you how many times I sent my resume out after I graduated, my very empty resume at that. But how many times I sent it out and I didn't even get like, hey, we received your resume, but we're not considering you for the position email. It's just crickets. And temp agencies just when you want to fill those blank space in your resume right when you get out of college, it's a quick and easy way. The first job that I got with a temp agency, I signed the paperwork at 6 p.m. and I was at work the next day at 6 a.m. So, you know, you can get a job very, very quickly, and you can get a job with a very competitive salary, because the advantages of a temp agency is that you don't have to negotiate in person with the hiring manager. You negotiate with the recruiter. And so you can look up online, you know, in the area of your field. You know, let's say you're going into manufacturing, you can look up an average associate one manufacturing salary or an average manufacturing associate salary, or excuse me, hourly rate. You give them that number, and it's their job to go over to the hiring manager and get you that number. It's much easier than doing it yourself, especially for the first couple of times when you don't have a lot of negotiating power.
Thank you. Oh, Dr. Pham, did you want to say something?
Sure. So out of undergrad, I went straight to grad school. So I applied to 18 different grad programs. And for those of you that are interested, if you get in, or when I got in, I actually was flown out to those specific schools and interviewed there and decide whether or not I wanted to go. So I guess that's my experience. In terms of applying for a job, like a career, I guess this is my very first job career, and I applied directly from Germany. And so there was a lot of flying back and forth for interviews. And for the academic process for faculty, it's usually a 2-day interview where you met with each of the faculty in the department, the administrative staff, and students as well. And so that's kind of my journey. Yeah, and then someone asked about a CV versus a resume. I actually have only written a CV. I don't have industry experience, so I'm really glad Troy is here to provide another perspective in terms of that. Back to you.
Alrighty, sounds good. Anybody else want to chime in on this? Well, Luke had asked this question, if there were more important resume or CV tips that could kind of make these better. No? Okay. Sounds
Oh,
good.
wait, I can jump in, sorry. Tailor your resume specifically for the job that you're applying for. A lot of hiring managers use software to filter through their resumes. And so they will look for keywords such as, you know, aseptic technique, pipetting skills, laboratory experience. Just toss them in there, even if it's a little bit clunky. Look for the exact terminology that they use in the job description and include that exact terminology in your resume. Words and phrasing can just be paraphrased. Don't copy paste. You guys are all students. You should know better than that. But it's a very easy way to make yourself look as qualified as you are, rather than just, you know, saying, oh, you know, I have experience at this job. Say what exactly that experience is that tailors towards that new position. And then a very hard rule that I have with resumes, and I think that pretty much everyone should sort of internalize this in an industrial setting, is if you are working at a job and they ask you to do something once, that is enough to put it on your resume. If you are left in charge of somebody for 1 minute of one day, you were a supervisor. And it's not lying. It's you need to present yourself in a way that shows all the things that you've done. And saying, well, I was only a supervisor for 1 minute isn't really useful information. As long as you've led somebody before, you know, they're going to train you and they're going to make you a capable supervisor. So, you know, at least put your foot in the door, give yourself a shot.
Thank you, Troy. Anyone else want to jump in on that? No? Okay. All right, so we'll ask the next question. All right, since we have a mix of both, what are the benefits and trade-offs associated with going to graduate school versus going straight into the industry? So what advice would you give to a student considering graduate school versus a student who's hoping to get a job right after they graduate from their undergrad?
get to make money in industry. That's I guess that would be the big pro. But education is definitely furthering yourself if you have something that you want to do. But I guess the biggest piece of advice that I would give is don't go into a graduate program if you aren't sure that you want to do that. You know, if you're not willing to commit, you know, a very large portion of your life to this specific, you know, you're narrowing it down pretty specifically when you go into grad school. You know, grad schools don't look down on people going into the industry. You know, you can develop a lot of experience in the industry and you can see a lot of the way that the science works in real time. And then you can go and apply to grad school when you're ready. If finances are an issue, you know, industry is where you're going to meet those needs.
I think my advice is that you make a decision and follow through with it. So let's say you decide you want to go into industry. It's okay to say, okay, I will commit a year or 2 years so that you give yourself that time to immerse in either the company or the experience of being in industry. If you do decide to go into either a master's or a PhD program, decide to give yourself sufficient time to really get to know that program. Because I think at the end of the day, we want to live life by design. So design your life and say, this is what you want to do instead of just doing the default. The pro to, so I went straight from undergrad to grad school and then from grad school to postdoc and then postdoc to professorship. So as traditional, I guess, and linear path as you can get. And the good thing about that is that there's that inertia. So I remember entering grad school and having to take my 4 entrance exams. So physical chemistry, organic chemistry, analytical chemistry, and inorganic. So I took all of those and I didn't have to study as much. I just kind of went and took it because I just finished these classes as an undergrad. But I do know of some students that they had to retake some classes, for instance, as they entered graduate school because that has been some time ago. But there's nothing wrong with that. So long as you are making a decision and that you're following through with it and that you're giving yourself time and space to really decide the steps moving forward in life. I think those are all good choices.
I had a very non-linear path to where I am going, where I ended up. I wanted to make sure there was a field I was interested in. I liked chemistry. I was tired of school after 4 years and I wanted to get out and work as a chemist. There was a point in graduate school where I actually thought maybe I should get an MBA or go to graduate school. Because I was thinking, wow, another 4 years for graduate school. Do I really want to do that? And one of my mentors said, you know, you're going to be 4 years. In 4 years, you're going to be 4 years old anyway. So, like, where do you want to be in 4 years? And I knew this was my chance to get my graduate program, and so I did take the precursors to an MBA. So I took business law and accounting and econ 1 and 2, and honestly, I found them rather trivial. I used to spend, I would say, a good 15 minutes a week studying economics. Yeah, it just wasn't that hard. And I thought, no, it's the science that I really enjoy. And I do enjoy challenges. I've never looked for an easy path. I like things that are challenging. And so it was graduate school. Graduate school is tough. In chemistry, they tend to pay you, okay? So it's not you're paying extra, you make money. It is challenging, but when I look back in my life, it's probably the best time of my life that I've ever had. Because that's what I did. You focused on research. I had personal stuff going on as well. I didn't have a lot of money, but it was a good time. I still fondly think of cold mornings running chemical reactions at 5 a.m. in the morning because they needed to run long. But I know people who, the smartest person out of my class was David Anderson, and he went to work for Union 76, going to gas stations, talking about different oil additives, okay? And he retired several years ago as vice president of Union 76. And I don't know about that big boat that guy from other thing had, but David had lots of money. oil companies are good to work for. So he had a very, he had a big family. He had things that were important. He did go on to get an MBA, was very successful in that form of life. So, there's all sorts of opportunities out there with a chemistry degree. And what you want to do is you want to get your chemistry degree and kind of get a feel for where you want to go next. There are no false steps out there, right? So don't worry about failing. You take everything as a learning experience. I thought I was going to be a high school chemistry teacher and maybe a principal, and it's like, nah, I'm going to change. I'm going to go back to school. That's really was the path that I was on, and ultimately you do it. So.
Thank you so much. That's all really great advice. So we are getting towards the end and we are wrapping up. So we do have one last question for our panelists, and this is a question that we give all of our panelists. I do think it's just the cherry on top. In regards to where you're at now in your professional career, what is the best piece of advice anyone has ever given you?
I read this somewhere. I think the best advice I've gotten is be yourself. Everyone else is already taken. And so you have a lot to offer, trust what you can give, and be yourself. You can't be anyone else anyway. So that's my advice.
That's pretty good advice. I agree. You have to figure out who you are and what your goals and what your values are. Maybe be tolerant of other people. There's, it's a big wide world out there, and you're part of it, and it's best if to your own self be true, and be a part of the solution and not the problem.
I don't know if it's exactly like a tagline of advice, but right before I graduated, I was talking with Dr. Nickerson about the difference between a BA in biochemistry and a BS in biochemistry. And he basically passed on to me a story of a Cornell postdoc who got a tube jammed in liquid nitrogen cooled NMR and decided to use a metal screwdriver to get it out. And of course ruined the NMR. But before he told me the screwdriver part, he asked me what I would do if that situation presented itself. And I, kind of like had this idea of like using glass stirring rods and trying to like kind of scoop it out like chopsticks. But that's better than a screwdriver. And just because somebody has more experience than you, just because they have a better degree than you, just because, they might have something they don't, doesn't mean that you don't bring something to the table. So don't forget to back yourself and believe that you actually are qualified to be doing the things that you're doing.
Thank you so much, Troy. That's a really great story. I just want to extend our gratitude here at the Science Success Center. We really appreciate you taking the time to come meet our students, talk to them about your experiences, let them kind of know the inside and outs of what it could look like for them after they graduate. I am going to take this moment to ask if anyone is comfortable from our panelists to maybe drop an email down in the chat in case a student has maybe any follow-up questions or they might want to pick your brain a little bit after. If you can go ahead and take the time to do that right now. And if you are a Science Success Center student, we do have a few moments left in our panel. If you can go ahead and go straight to the chat and sign in to get your participation. I will be having the Zoom room open a little bit longer just to give students to finish up signing in. Of course, once you are done, you're more than welcome to leave. If any students want to hang out until our panel is over, you're more than welcome to. Okay, looks like everyone's deciding to head out. Again, thank you so much for joining us. Dr. Pham, Troy, Dr. Maynard, we really appreciate you guys sharing your experiences. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks.
Thanks for having us. Take care. Bye.
Bye.